What's up, everyone? This is Brian. Welcome back to Love and Hard Money. This is our 9th episode. You know that feeling when you try to talk to someone about Bitcoin, like you're yelling into a fog? You explain it simply. You say, look, inflation is stealing from you. You work every day for money that someone else can create for free. Your time, your energy, your labor, all of it stored in dollars that are quietly losing value. Your life is slowly being siphoned away to the benefit of people closest to the money printer. You can see it happen in real time. You explain it calmly. Inflation isn't just prices going up. Inflation is money being expanded. More claims on the same amount of real goods and services. And when that happens, every dollar saved by honest work buys a little bit less. In other words, it's a hidden tax. A tax that no one voted on, a tax that no one debates, a tax that quietly transfers wealth from everyone who saves to the people closest to the money printer. And when you say this, something strange happens. Every single time. They hear you. You can see they understand the words coming out of your mouth. But then they get quiet. A little uncomfortable. And almost immediately, they try to change the subject. And after that, they work very hard to make sure the topic never comes up again. It's tempting to think this happens because people don't understand Bitcoin, but I don't think that's what's going on. I think it's something deeper. I've lived it myself. There was a moment, a few years before I found Bitcoin, when I first started to really understand sound money, when the pieces clicked into place. And to be honest about what that felt like, it wasn't liberating. Not at first. It was uncomfortable because understanding it forces you to confront a very specific, very unsettling possibility. If the money is broken, if inflation really is quietly stealing from everyone, then it means something else might also be true. It means the system we trusted lied to us. It means the rules we were told to follow might not actually protect us. It means the value we thought we were saving for the future may have been quietly diluted the entire time. And that's a hard thing for people to face. It's much easier to say, Bitcoin's too complicated, or it's too technical, or maybe it's a Ponzi. Those explanations allow people to move on with their day, because the alternative is looking in the mirror and admitting something deeply unsettling. That we may be spending our lives working inside a system that quietly extracts from us while pretending to serve us. More to the point, we are the system. We are the enforcers and prison guards. We are the bars of our own cage. And when people sense that possibility, many would rather dismiss the messenger than examine the message. This reaction, that uncomfortable silence, isn't new. People living inside systems built on lies have always behaved this way. Because once a lie becomes embedded in the structure of society, something strange happens. It doesn't need to be enforced anymore. It enforces itself. Everyone knows something isn't quite right, but no one wants to say it out loud, kind of like we saw during COVID. Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn spent years inside the Soviet system, as a prisoner in the Gulag, then as a writer trying to tell the truth about it from the inside. He watched how the machinery of official lies actually operated, not as dramatic propaganda, not as shouted slogans, but as a quiet, daily social contract. He described it something like this: we know they're lying. They know they're lying. We know, they know, we know they are lying. But they are still lying. That's what systemic lies look like. Not a single dramatic deception, but a quiet agreement to keep pretending. Pretending the numbers make sense. Pretending the policies are working. Pretending the money still measures value honestly. Because once the lie becomes large enough, confronting it feels destabilizing. It threatens careers, it threatens institutions, it threatens people's sense of security. And here's the part Solzhenitsyn saw most clearly. The part that made his essay, live not by lies, so dangerous to the Soviet state. The system doesn't survive because the powerful enforce it. It survives because ordinary people participate in it. Stop. Did you hear me? Don't just nod your head. Hear this. The system survives because we participate in it. Every day, in small ways, by staying quiet when we know something is wrong, by going along, by choosing comfort over speaking truth. He wasn't writing about dissidents. He was writing about the average person who had a choice every morning: go along with the official story or refuse to. And his challenge to the Soviet people was simple. Just don't lie. You don't have to fight the system. You don't have to become an activist. Just refuse to repeat what you know isn't true. That's it. That was radical enough. And I think about that challenge in the context of our monetary system every single day. Because we're surrounded by the official story about money. That inflation is normal. That central banks are protecting us by managing the economy. That the experts have it handled. And most people, good people, smart people, they go along with it. Not because they're stupid, but because the cost of questioning it feels higher than the cost of accepting it. Until it doesn't anymore. One of the features of lies is that they rarely argue directly for something false. Instead, they obscure what is true. They confuse it. They complicate it. They bury it under jargon and statistics and narratives. Take one of the biggest economic narratives of our time, that inflation is necessary, that a healthy economy requires prices to rise over time. This idea is presented as economic common sense, almost scientific, the kind of thing serious people believe. But if you step back and think about human progress just for a moment, something strange appears. Humans build tools. Tools make things better, faster, cheaper. That's the entire story of technological civilization. Every innovation allows us to produce more with less. And in a free market, competition forces those productivity gains to flow to consumers. You always choose the thing that gives you the most value for the least cost. Jeff Booth makes this case powerfully in The Price of Tomorrow, that technology is fundamentally deflationary, that in a truly free market, long-term direction of prices should be down, better products, higher quality, lower cost. That's the natural result of human ingenuity compounding over time. And when you hold that thought, you start to notice things that don't fit. Did cattle suddenly become harder to raise? Did we get worse at building houses since the 1970s? Did we somehow lose our ability to produce things efficiently? Of course not. We are more productive than any civilization in human history right now. So, if prices are still rising everywhere, if food, housing, healthcare, education all keep getting more expensive, something else must be happening. This is the truth the inflation narrative has to hide. The natural state of the free market is deflation. Rising living standards, falling prices. But when money itself is constantly being expanded, when new currency units are created faster than goods and services, prices rise, even while productivity improves. And as technologies like artificial intelligence radically accelerate productivity even further, the pressure between real deflation and monetary inflation will only grow. The signal gets distorted. People work harder. Technology gets better. But life somehow becomes more expensive anyway. That's not a free market. That's a system where the measuring stick itself is being manipulated. And when you control the measuring stick, you control everything the economy tells you about itself. But something new has entered the picture. For the first time in human history, we have a measuring stick that cannot be quietly stretched. Bitcoin. A fixed supply monetary network. No central authority. No ability for anyone to print more units to solve political problems. No one can change the rules because it's convenient. And once the measuring stick becomes honest, something remarkable happens. Reality becomes visible again. The veil of fog lifts. You can see the actual impact of money printing. You can see which businesses create real value and which ones exist only because of cheap money. You can see which policies produce genuine prosperity and which ones produce distortion dressed up as growth. Honesty in the unit of account produces honesty in everything measured by it. That's not a small thing. That's a civilizational shift. Now, a sober assessment requires acknowledging something else. When people in power rely on lies to maintain that power, and something comes along that exposes the lie, they don't simply step aside. Solzhenitsyn paid for this truth with 8 years in the labor camp. Most of us won't face anything like that. At least, I hope not. But I don't want to pretend that the cost of living honestly inside a dishonest system is zero. It costs relationships. It costs social comfort. Sometimes it costs business. The people who went along got along for a while. The people who refused paid something. That's always been the deal. There's the Gandhi quote you've probably heard. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. I think in the modern world, there's a step that gets added. First, they ignore you. Then they laugh at you. Then they fight you. Then they try to co-opt you. Then maybe you win. Because once something becomes too powerful to destroy, the next best strategy is to absorb it, wrap it in regulation, turn it into a financial product, take the thing that threatened the system and make it serve the system instead. Look at Rome. Threatened by an upstart religion called Christianity, they absorbed it and made it the official religion of the empire. We've watched this play out in real time with Bitcoin. ETFs, custodial products, institutional adoption dressed up as validation. And here's the tension. Some of that adoption is genuinely good. More people holding Bitcoin in any form is more people protected from debasement. I'm not against that. But there's a difference between Bitcoin expanding and Bitcoin being domesticated. Custodial Bitcoin, paper Bitcoin, Bitcoin inside the same institutions that created the problems in the first place. The protocol doesn't change. The rules don't bend. But the experience of using it can become centralized. And if people hold Bitcoin through intermediaries they trust blindly, we've recreated the problem that we're trying to solve. That's the real risk right now. Not a technical attack on the network, but a cultural drift away from what Bitcoin actually is. But here's why I keep coming back to hope. Bitcoin is voluntary. Anyone can run a node. Anyone can hold their own keys. Anyone can verify the rules. The game theory is beautiful, precisely because it doesn't depend on everyone doing the right thing. It only requires that enough people do. And over time, systems that drift away from truth get arbitraged by systems that stay closer to it. That's not idealism. That's math. The honest ledger wins, because you can't measure a society with a dishonest ledger. But, and this is important, decentralization is not something that happens once. It's something that has to be defended continuously, over and over and over again, by small decisions made by decentralized participants. Running nodes matters. Self-custody matters. Understanding the systems matters. Refusing to outsource your verification to someone you trust blindly, that matters. Solzhenitsyn, I'm struggling with this name, you guys. Solzhenitsyn challenge to the Soviet citizen was, don't co-sign what you don't believe. Don't attend the meeting if you think it's a lie. Don't vote for someone you think is corrupt just because they're the lesser of two evils. Find what is good and stay there. Our version of that challenge is quieter, less dramatic, but no less real. Verify. Don't trust. Hold your keys. Run your node. Spend your Bitcoin. When you can, insist on getting paid in Bitcoin. Refuse to outsource your financial sovereignty to institutions that have repeatedly demonstrated they will dilute it when convenient. Move constantly in the direction of truth, even if you can't live it completely today. And that brings us back to something deeper. Truth. Not just truth in money, though that matters enormously, but truth in the way we live, in our relationships, in our businesses, in the agreements we make with each other. You cannot build a healthy society on lies. You cannot make good investments with bad information. You cannot plan for the future with a measuring stick that keeps changing. You cannot love your family well if you're spending your life chasing a number that someone else controls. Truth is the foundation that allows people to cooperate, and cooperation is the foundation of prosperity. This is why I believe Bitcoin is not ultimately a financial story. It's a story about the kind of civilization we want to live in. One built on voluntary exchange and honest measurement, or one built on manufactured consent and quiet extraction. We get to choose, every day, in small ways. That's what Solzhenitsyn was asking his neighbors to do, not to start a revolution, just to stop participating in the lie, just to live by truth instead. There's a line I keep thinking about. As long as one of us is free, all of us can be free. Freedom doesn't disappear completely. It survives in the people who refuse to surrender truth. In a world built on comfortable lies, those people become candles in the dark. Each node, a candle. Each wallet, a candle. Each person choosing verification over blind trust, another candle. And the thing about candles is, you can light thousands of them from a single flame without diminishing the fire. That's how truth spreads. Slowly at first. Then, all at once. Don't repeat what you know isn't true. Verify what you're told. Hold what you earn. And light another candle. I'm Brian. This is Love and Hard Money. Stack sats, live free, tell the truth, and insist on truth in money. See you next week.